Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Rashbi in the house. Rabbi Stephen here with you with another 10-minute Torah. And thanks again for tuning in. Really appreciate your patronage. And, again, if you ever have any questions, ever have any responses, I'd like to hear it. Let me know if there's anything you'd like to see differently, more of, less of, whatever, because this is really for you. This is to, to kind of teach you a little bit, I basically study the Chumash, the Torah, every week, and always trying to glean new stuff out of it, and just trying to want to make it interesting, want to make it relevant, etc., etc. So first of all, happy Hanukkah. We start December 2nd, Sunday night is the first candle. B'nai Chaim, Congregation B'nai Chaim, will be 6 o'clock at Murietta Town Center. We will be doing the first lighting there, and that's going to be a big event. We're going to be a lot of different people. I think a few congregations will be joining us. There'll be some music. We'll be playing some instruments, singing some songs. It's going to be a lot of fun. So love to see you out there. Please join us. Again, Murietta Town Square, Sunday night, December 2nd, 6 p.m. See you there. Okay, so Vayeishev. And what happens here, okay, now we start to see a little bit more of what's going on with the development of our people, but also a very critical event here. Okay, this is setting the stage for the Israelites and what will be the tribes, Jacob and his 12 sons and his daughters moving over to Egypt. Now consider this. A lot of the prayers that we do, okay, the end of the V'ahavta, the 3 paragraphs, Ani Adonai Elohechem, I am the Lord your God, Chotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, that brought you out of the land of Egypt, Liot lachem le'Elohim, to be your God. This is a common theme in our prayers, in our Chumash, okay? Hashem says, I brought you out of Egypt to be your God. And this is the beginning of it, okay? Because this is where what happens? Jacob has a son by his favorite wife Rachel, Joseph. And the other sons, are out there in the fields. They're working. They're doing their business. And Joseph is home studying. And, Jacob says to him, go out and check how they're doing. He gives him this coat. Some texts translate a coat of many colors. Others say it was a beautiful wool coat. But the point is that his coat was so adorned, it was so made that it resembled the coats of the tribal chieftains. This was their rank. We see in the military these days, kings, what do? They wear crowns, they wear beautiful garments. And what they did at that time, a lot of the different chieftains would wear these elaborate garments, and this is what Joseph had. So he comes there, the other sons look at him, and now they're jealous. He's the favorite son, they all know it. He's the one that comes to check on them. And there's some discussion as to why he's checking on him. Does Jacob think they're just kind of sloughing off? Or other people have suggested that the sons of Leah, the Judah, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, are actually bullying or just kind of overshadowing the sons of Zilpah and Bilhah, because they're like second-class citizens because they were born out of maidservants, not really out of the real wives. Sometimes Bilhah and Zilpah are referred to as concubines or maidservants. Other times they're referred to as wives. Did Jacob have 2 wives and 2 concubines? Did he have 4 wives? Well, they all had sons, and these sons became the progenitors, the originators of the 12 tribes. Okay, so they are jealous of Joseph. And Joseph, they see him as, he's described as a na'ar, which is a youth. And some people think that the connotation of the Hebrew word na'ar for youth is someone who's immature. So he's kind of a little putz, if you would. And he's kind of rubbing in their faces, like, I've got this coat and everything. And it just rubs them the wrong way. So ultimately, they're like, let's get rid of him. We don't need this nonsense. We don't need this little kid coming up to us who are really doing the real work. So we all know the story. They put him in a pit, and he's carried off to Egypt, where he goes through different adventures, if you will, different phases. He's sold to the court of Potiphar, who is one of the chamberlains, one of the viceroys of the Egyptian court. His wife tries to seduce him because he's like a 17, 18-year-old kid. He's in charge of the household because he's mature, and the wife, and Potiphar is gone all day, so the wife is attracted to him, and ultimately he keeps resisting her advances, and she gets all angry. Ends up with his coat as he pulls away, and says that he tried to assault her and he's put in prison. And from there he interprets dreams, and that's the next portion. But the reason I'm going through this is year after year I don't want to focus on the same thing, but let's look at a sidebar that happens in this particular portion. Chapter 38 of Genesis talks about Judah. Okay, so Judah has kind of gone out on his own, and there's some commentary about him thinking, well, I want to start my own business. So he gets in with what's described as a Canaanite. Now, if we remember, the one big warning, the one big admonishment is that don't hang out, don't consort with the Canaanites. They're pagans, they're nasty people. Okay. However, in other parts of the Holy Scriptures, okay, I believe it's Jeremiah, a Canaanite is a word used to describe a merchant. So basically, he, a lot of sages give him the benefit of the doubt, saying, Judah, he's got Yehudah, it's got the Yud Hey Vav Hey in his name, Yehudah, and we are all Jews. So he's the progenitor of one of the major remaining tribe. Why would he consort with people that are absolutely against everything he believes? And so they said it was, Canaanite is probably the term. It's kind of an obscure term, but it means merchant. So he goes into business with this guy, wants his own business, and he has this wife. Wife's name, by the way, is not mentioned. It just says he takes a wife. Has two sons, has and Onan. So falls in love with this woman, Tamar. Word means date palm. And he actually dies before he has any sons or any offspring to carry on the name. Well, there is a process called levirate, and levir is the Roman word for I believe it's stepbrother. But anyway, the Hebrew word is yibum. And the obligation is for the next brother or cousin or somebody from the family to marry a widow who has any sons to have a son, or to give them an heir, to give the deceased brother or deceased relative an heir. And in the Zohar and Kabbalah, they say that this heir is actually a reincarnation of the one who died. But the point is to create a lineage. Well, Onan didn't want to do that. He didn't want to have an heir. He wanted, because then he thought, first of all, that Judah's wealth would go to that son, not him. He's next in line. Now I'm the firstborn, okay? The other consideration is that and Onan didn't want to impregnate Tamar because she was gorgeous. They didn't want to wreck her body. And these are things that happened back then. A lot of people would have two wives. They'd have one wife for fun, for lust, and then they'd have the other wife, to do the cooking and the cleaning, to be the maidservant. So anyway, Onan ends up dying too, and we know some of the stories. We know what the word Onan is. I don't want to get into it here. But, and by the way, the Torah addresses these things. I mean, they go for these things because one of the things that creates sin is this idea of temptation, the lust, the body's lust. So it talks about that. So Tamar is very evolved. She's a very old soul, and she's like, I need to have an heir. And Jacob has one other son, Shelah, who he doesn't want to, either Shelah is too young, or he doesn't want to expose, twice bitten, thrice shy, if you will. He's like, this chick is bad news. All her husbands end up dying. He doesn't want Shelah to die too. So Tamar, though, realizes that she needs to have an heir. We need an heir. And some people say that Tamar knew instinctively that her heirs, her lineage, would eventually be the messianic lineage. It would be David. David will be one of her descendants. So she knows she has to have an heir. So what does she do? She tricks Judah. She puts on a veil, and Judah's, going off for this festival, and she disguises herself as a prostitute, has sex with him. He says, well, I'm sorry, I don't have any money, but tell you what, here's my signet, here's my wrap, here's my staff. Hold this as collateral. I'll bring you some goats, when I have. So as things happen in the Torah, as they do, Tamar ends up getting pregnant. And the people in the community say, they come back to him 3 months later. Well, by the way, he comes back to pay her. She's not there. But 3 months later, people are telling Judah, hey, your daughter-in-law, she's still betrothed. She got pregnant. And this was a heinous sin. Judah, as the patriarch, has the right to put her to death for adultery. And she asks him, says, who was the father? And at first she doesn't tell him, but she shows him the signet ring, and she shows him and the other the wrap and the scepter. And finally Judah cops to it. He says, okay, yeah, I guess I'm the father you tricked, and you were right to do this. But think about this too. We talk about the idea of gossip in Judaism. Tamar was willing to go to her death rather than rat out, if you will, or gossip, or say this thing about Judah and thus exposing him. But he had the moral character to take the responsibility himself. Okay, so why does the Torah digress to that? To show the lineage, because we're talking lineage of the tribes. Now we're talking the lineage of Judah. So, okay, so we'll see you at services. I'm back. I will be doing services next week, just so nobody gets us confused. And it'll be the weekend before Hanukkah. We'll want to see you folks there. And thank you very much for listening. Look forward to seeing you around services.